I call Catherine Delahunty.
Mr Speaker, it's a pleasure to follow the Shakespearean tones of the National MP, Chris Ockendall, painted a very evocative picture of a post-apocalyptic world when the West Coast is closed. However, the boom and bust cycles that attach to the industry that he's describing, the mining industry, are one of the reasons for those apocalyptic moments in the history of areas like the West Coast and Waihi. However, I'm not going to talk about that, Mr Speaker. I'm going to talk about the education system, which has been the theme this afternoon, and whether it's working. Now, even before PISA, one might have to worry when you get people who are aspiring to be leaders of political parties in Parliament who are not sure whether man landed on the moon, or not sure whether chemtrails are real or not. It does make us wonder whether the education system is working, or whether that's just the ramblings of an individual who's lost touch with reality for some other reasons. However, it's very important. The Green position on chemtrails is many people have too much time on their hands for conspiracy theories. And absolutely, I do not believe in chemtrails. The urgent debate that we just held on education, however, was that the Minister told the opposition that we should stop being binary and we should have a constructive educational conversation. And then she yelled at the opposition to grow up. Unfortunately for the Minister, this is a failed educational method for inspiring dialogue, let alone change. And just agreeing with the Minister is not dialogue. And being yelled at doesn't work. But I do agree with the Minister that we need to strengthen the teaching profession and we need to support all children in Aotearoa to get the best. But what PISA tells us is that the bad educational policies of the last 5 years in particular have entrenched disadvantage. We need to really look at PISA, and PISA is not the be-all and end-all. But what PISA is telling us this time in the chapter on economic disadvantage and educational equity issues is that our country is decreasing when everyone else is increasing. Our country is failing when everyone else is succeeding. And so it's no good to just keep trotting out these programs for success without looking at the context that we're operating in. The education system doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's very much part of the economic situation of our country, which right now is bedeviled with a number of government policies that are not working. Education is just one of them. The asset sales debacle, and I would urge everybody out there to vote to make sure that the government gets a message about that very, very clearly, that we don't want to sell our assets. And also the debacle over Sky City, youth rates, the gutting of the RMA, and even one of the most mean-spirited ones, which is the cup of tea. You know, no one's allowed a cup of tea at work unless they don't have a right to a break. That one, to me, is one of the most mean-spirited, pathetic, ghastly things you could say to people in the workplace who don't have a lot of power that you can possibly imagine. After spending the night with the cleaners in this building, boy, did we want a cup of tea in this very, very hot building overnight. However, back to PISA. If the Minister's serious about listening to PISA, then she needs to adopt a green program of positive solutions, such as a living wage for the parents. Now, there's a thought. If PISA tells us that socio-economic disadvantage is critical, one of the ways that we help children to get socio-economic advantage is pay their parents enough money to be able to provide them with the necessaries of life. And then all the programs around food in schools, all the charitable good works that in the end do not empower people but are necessary for survival at the moment won't be needed because people will be earning a living wage. Another brilliant idea would be extend the family tax credit, the in-work tax credit, to all families so that everybody had enough to feed those children. Now, there's an idea. And we really need to be serious about addressing what PISA has identified. As I said earlier, PISA is not the end game for education, and some of the countries that have been ranked really highly, the Asian countries, their authoritarian models are not the best models for our educational success. They do not result in innovation, critical thinking and creativity, which is needed in the world today, as opposed to the world of yesterday. So those countries themselves, although ranking highly in PISA, are starting to acknowledge that models such as the creative broad curriculum, which New Zealand was once famous for, are the kind of models that we need. But I think one of the most vital messages of PISA, Mr Speaker, is early childhood education, and that's where we're missing out. We've cut the registration for 100%, and what we are doing to Pacific heritage languages through the Select Committee is a disgrace. It's the opposite of PISA, and it's very disappointing.
Nice.
I call Jamie Lee Ross.
Mr. Speaker, about 18 months ago I started to take